At my husband's funeral, a text said, "I'm still here, trust no one." What followed uncovered secrets my family buried. My name is Elaine Porter, and I'm 65 years old. Until last spring, I thought I understood the meaning of loss. I had buried my parents, watched friends fade with age, and accepted that time has no mercy. But nothing prepared me for what I lived through after my husband's funeral. That morning began quietly, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, not peaceful. The sky hung low and gray over Maple Hollow, our small town tucked between cornfields and forgotten highways. The church bells tolled slow and hollow, like echoes of everything I'd lost. The casket was closed, burns, they said. My husband, Douglas Porter, had died in what the police called a workplace accident at his carpentry shop. They told me one of the old machines malfunctioned and exploded. I never saw his body. The pews were half full, mostly neighbors and church folk. My daughter Megan stood beside me, rigid and pale, while my son Caleb rested a hand on my shoulder that felt more like a formality than comfort. His wife, Trina, dabbed her eyes in a way that seemed rehearsed. When the pastor asked if anyone wished to share words about Douglas, I couldn't move. My throat locked, my fingers clenched around the folded handkerchief he'd once tucked into his pocket. It still smelled faintly like cedar. After the service, people offered condolences that sounded borrowed from greeting cards. He was a good man. He's in a better place. Time will heal. I nodded, I smiled, I thanked them. Felt nothing. Then, beside the open grave, my phone buzzed. First I ignored it. It felt almost blasphemous to check messages while the pastor read the final prayer. But something, an instinct I couldn't explain, made me look. A single text glowed on the screen. From an unknown number. "I'm alive. That's not me in the coffin. Don't trust them." My knees nearly buckled. I stared at the words until they blurred. My pulse thrashed in my ears. For a split second, I thought grief had finally broken my mind. I typed with trembling fingers. "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared. Then another message. "They're watching. Don't trust your children." My throat closed. I felt the world tilt sideways. Across the grave, Caleb's eyes met mine, unreadable. Megan stood beside him, arms crossed, expression still. They both looked so calm. Calm. I slid the phone into my purse before anyone noticed, clutching it like a secret weapon. "Mom." Caleb's voice was gentle but oddly detached. "You okay?" I forced a smile. "Just dizzy. The air's heavy." He nodded. "Let's get you home." But as the coffin lowered, a thought lodged in my chest like a splinter. If Douglas was dead, who knew enough about my family to send a message like that? The next days blurred into one long ache. The house felt hollow without Douglas's humming, without the creak of his boots on the porch. He'd been my compass for 42 years. We'd met in Riverside, Ohio, back when gas was cheap and dreams felt endless. I'd been 23, cleaning motel rooms to help my sick mother. Douglas was a mechanic then, gentle, broad-shouldered, with hands that could fix anything except his own heart when it broke for me. We built a life from scratch. A small home, a modest business, 2 children who filled every corner with laughter. Or so I believed. Now those same children moved through my house like strangers. Caleb handled the funeral paperwork and insurance with brisk efficiency. Megan busied herself organizing closets, discarding Douglas's belongings as if grief could be conquered by cleanliness. Every time I tried to talk about their father, they changed the subject. One evening, while sorting old bills, Caleb said, "Mom, you should think about selling this place. It's too much for you alone." "I'm not selling our home," I replied. He smiled tightly. "It's just practical. You could get something smaller, maybe near Megan's place." Megan nodded. "It'd be safer too. Fewer stairs, less upkeep." Their voices sounded reasonable, but their eyes, cold, measured. Douglas once said money changes how people breathe. It slows the rhythm of love and quickens the pace of greed. I used to laugh at that. I don't anymore. That night, alone in bed, I reopened the message. It was still there. Not a dream. Not a glitch. I'm alive. Don't trust them. Typed again. If you're Douglas, tell me something only we know. The reply came faster than my heartbeat. Our wedding song was Landslide. You cried halfway through and said you'd love me even when the roof leaked. My breath caught. No one else knew that. Not Caleb, not Megan. Not even Trina. The phone slipped from my hand. I sat frozen, staring at the flickering lamp, my heart torn between impossible hope and creeping dread. If he was alive, where was he? The following morning, I went to Douglas's workshop on the edge of town. It should have been a wreck from the explosion, but the place looked untouched. The machines gleamed with recent polish. The air smelled faintly of oil, not smoke. There were no burn marks, no broken tools, no evidence of any blast. A chill ran down my spine. I called out softly, "Douglas!" Silence. On his desk I found a ledger. Inside, neat handwriting chronicled repair jobs, invoices, and something new: withdrawals. Thousands of dollars in cash removed over recent months. The last entry stopped 2 days before his supposed death. Below it, a folded note. In Douglas's handwriting. If anything happens to me, Elaine, check the bank account. Don't believe what they tell you. D. My hands shook. When I returned home, Caleb was already there, waiting in the kitchen. He smiled too bright. "Mom, you shouldn't be driving out there. It's not safe." "You went through his shop," I said. "It's spotless." He paused, his jaw tightening. "They cleaned up after the investigation." "What investigation?" "The police one. I called the department. There isn't any record." For the first time, his eyes wavered. "You shouldn't be talking to them without me. You're upset. You could confuse things." Upset. Confused. The words pricked my skin like needles. After he left, I checked the bank as Douglas's note said. The teller, Mrs. Carlyle, had known us for decades. When she pulled up the records, her brow furrowed. "There were several withdrawals in Douglas's name," she said. "But he didn't come alone. Your daughter was with him once. And your son twice." My stomach dropped. "He said his eyesight wasn't great anymore," she continued. "And they were helping him sign." Douglas had perfect eyesight. He never went anywhere without his reading glasses. I left the bank dizzy, clutching the printouts. That night another message came. "They forged documents. Check the insurance policy." I tore through our filing cabinet until I found it. 6 months ago, the coverage had been raised from $10,000 to $100,000. Signed by Douglas. Witnessed by Caleb. I pressed a shaking hand to my mouth. My son. My own flesh and blood. Had they done something to him? Days passed in a fog of suspicion. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. Every call from Megan felt rehearsed. I started locking my bedroom door. Then, on the 5th night after the funeral, I received another message. "Go to the old storage unit. Locker 12. Bring no one." The number was the same unknown one. My heart pounded as I stared at the message, weighing the risk. By morning, fear lost to curiosity. The storage facility sat near the highway, rows of metal doors gleaming under the pale sun. The key still hung on our kitchen board, the one labeled shed. Inside Locker 12, I found boxes of old tools, a cracked coffee mug, and an envelope taped beneath the workbench. On the envelope, in Douglas's handwriting, "If you find this, don't tell the kids." Inside were photos, bank slips, and a receipt for a private investigator in Columbus. The name Andrew Cole. My pulse hammered as another message appeared on my phone. "Andrew knows the truth. Contact him." The screen went black as if the sender had vanished again. That evening I dialed the number on the receipt. A deep voice answered, calm but cautious. "Cole Investigations. Mr. Cole, my name is Elaine Porter. My husband, he hired you before he died." Was. "Then, Mrs. Porter, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. We need to meet." "About what?" "About why your husband isn't who they say he is, and who's responsible for making him disappear? The line went dead. When I hung up the phone that night, the world felt tilted. I sat in the kitchen under the dim light, staring at the old clock ticking above the stove. Each second thudded like a countdown I couldn't stop. Douglas had hired a private investigator. That meant he'd known something was wrong before the so-called accident. And now, that same investigator wanted to meet me. But the warning in the messages replayed in my mind like a heartbeat. Don't trust them. I decided to tell no one. Not Caleb. Not Megan. Not even Doris, my next-door neighbor and closest friend. The next afternoon, I drove to Willow Creek Diner, the place Andrew Cole had suggested. It was one of those old-style roadside diners where time seemed to stall, smell of coffee and fried bacon, the faint hum of 70s rock from an old jukebox. He was already there when I arrived. Mid-50s, gray at the temples, clean-cut but tired eyes. He stood as I approached, extending his hand with quiet politeness. "Mrs. Porter," he said. "Andrew Cole. Please call me Elaine." We sat across from each other in a booth. My tea trembled in my hands as I tried to steady my nerves. "You said my husband hired you." He nodded. "About 3 weeks before his disappearance." Disappearance? Andrew's gaze was steady. "I don't believe your husband's dead, Mrs. Porter. And I'm fairly certain the so-called accident was staged." My chest tightened. "You think my husband faked his death?" "Not willingly," Andrew said. "Let me explain." He reached into a worn leather briefcase and placed a small digital recorder and a stack of printed photos on the table. "Douglas came to my office in early April," he said. "He told me his son and daughter had been pressuring him to expand his insurance coverage and sign several financial documents he didn't fully understand. He was worried." My throat went dry. "He never told me that." "He suspected forgery, manipulation, possibly fraud. He asked me to quietly look into their finances." He slid a photo across the table. It was blurry, clearly taken from a distance, but unmistakable. Caleb standing outside First State Insurance, holding a thick envelope. "This was taken 4 days before the accident," Andrew said. "He met with an agent, altered his father's policy, and listed himself and Megan as beneficiaries." The floor beneath me seemed to tilt. "But Douglas signed those papers." "After your son presented them," Andrew finished. "I had a handwriting analyst compare signatures. The ones filed with the insurance company are forgeries." I gripped the edge of the table, trying to breathe. "Why didn't you go to the police?" "I needed proof. Douglas was supposed to meet me the morning after the explosion. He never showed. When I saw the news about his death, I went to the scene. There was no explosion residue, no fire damage. The place had been cleaned before the police arrived." His words hit like cold rain. "So you think?" "I think your children staged it to cover something much darker." For a moment I couldn't speak. My children. My babies. Could they really? Andrew lowered his voice. "There's more. I tracked some of the insurance payout paperwork. The day after the funeral, an online transfer of $40,000 was initiated to an account linked to your son's business." Felt sick. "Douglas also left something for you," he said, reaching into his briefcase again. "A letter. He asked me to give it to you if anything happened to him." My hands shook as I unfolded the paper. Douglas's handwriting. Slanted, firm, achingly familiar. "Elaine, if you're reading this, it means the fear I carried has come true. The kids, Caleb and Megan, are not the same. I think Trina's pushing them. She talks about inheritance and retirement like I'm already gone. I can't prove it yet, but they're up to something. Be careful who you trust. And if I disappear, go to Andrew Cole. He'll help you find the truth." I pressed the letter to my chest, tears stinging my eyes. Andrew gave me a moment before continuing. "There's something else you should know. The hospital report on Douglas's death. It's fabricated." My head snapped up. Fabricated? I requested the official record. The attending physician listed traumatic burns due to workplace explosion, but there are no accompanying photos or toxicology results. The coroner who signed the report retired 2 days later. I stared at him. So he was killed? I believe so, Andrew said quietly. Or he's being held somewhere. Either way, your children know more than they're saying. When I drove home that night, Maple Hollow felt foreign. Every porch light looked like an eye watching me. Every passing car made my stomach twist. At home, Megan's SUV sat in the driveway. Inside, she was in the kitchen with Trina, both sipping wine like nothing in the world had ever gone wrong. Mom! Megan smiled too wide. We brought dinner. You shouldn't be eating alone. That's thoughtful, I said, forcing calm. They'd made roast chicken, Douglas's favorite. The smell was both comforting and nauseating. I noticed how Megan's eyes flicked to my purse, where my phone rested. Trina poured me a glass of wine. To Douglas. And to healing. The moment the glass touched my lips, a flicker of memory hit me. Andrew's warning from earlier. Be careful who you trust. I set the glass down. I'll drink later. Megan frowned. You always used to toast with Dad. I'm not in the mood. Something hardened in her eyes. Just for a second. Later that night, while they slept in the guest rooms, I checked my phone again. Another message blinked onto the screen. Don't eat or drink anything they bring you. Call Andrew. He has proof of what they did. My hands trembled. Who are you? Typed again. The only one trying to keep you alive. The words chilled me. I turned off the phone, locked my door, and sat awake listening to the house creak. I used to love that sound. It meant Douglas was home, moving about in the workshop or checking the locks. Now it sounded like ghosts whispering. The next morning I found Caleb in the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear. He hung up quickly when I walked in. Morning, Mom, he said casually. How are you feeling? Tired, I answered. He smiled too easily. You should get some rest. Megan and I were talking. We think you need help managing things. Maybe a conservatorship. It's just temporary, until you're emotionally stronger. The words sank in like poison. A conservatorship. It's not what it sounds like, he said. You'd still have control over personal stuff. We'd just handle the finances. I felt my pulse throb in my temples. Douglas left everything to me. I don't need managing. Mom, he said softly, stepping closer. You're grieving. We just want what's best. That phrase, we just want what's best, had always been his father's way of ending arguments gently. But coming from Caleb, it felt like a threat dressed as kindness. After he left, I called Andrew from my car. They're moving fast, I told him. They want to take control of everything. He sighed. Then we have to act first. Meet me tomorrow morning at the police station. I've gathered more evidence. Bank transfers, forged documents, audio recordings. Audio recordings. Your husband suspected they were planning something. He set up small voice-activated devices in the shop in your home. They captured more than you can imagine. Chill ran through me. What do they say? I'll show you tomorrow. Just don't tell anyone you're meeting me. That evening, the sky over Maple Hollow burned red with sunset. I stood on the porch, Douglas's letter clutched in my hand. Megan came outside, her face soft in the fading light. Mom, she said gently. We're worried about you. You've been distant. You're not eating. You're going to make yourself sick. I'm fine, sweetheart. She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Caleb told me you've been saying strange things. About Dad. About messages. My breath caught. What did he tell you? That you're confused, she said softly. That grief makes people imagine things. Maybe you should talk to someone. A doctor, maybe. Her tone was soothing, almost motherly, but her eyes were watchful. Evaluating. I don't need a doctor, I said, stepping back. Mom. She hesitated, then sighed. I know you miss him. We all do. But we have to accept he's gone. She turned and went inside, leaving me trembling in the cool air. Inside my purse, my phone buzzed again. They're planning to have you declared incompetent tomorrow. Don't go anywhere with them. Meet Andrew early. My fingers froze. Whoever was sending these messages knew everything. That night I packed a small bag. Just essentials, Douglas's letter and my phone. I didn't sleep. The moonlight poured across the living room floor like liquid silver as I sat by the window, waiting for dawn. When it came, I left quietly. The streets of Maple Hollow were still half asleep, the only sound the distant whistle of a freight train. I drove toward town, heart hammering. At the police station, Andrew was already there, waiting on the steps with a brown folder in his hands. He looked grave. "Elaine, what I'm about to show you will change everything you thought you knew about your family." He opened the folder, revealing photographs, bank statements, and something that made my knees weaken. A still image from security footage, dated 2 days after Douglas's supposed death, showed him, my husband, live, walking into a motel room on the edge of town. For a long moment I just stared at the photograph. It was blurry, grainy, security footage from some motel lobby, but there was no mistaking the man in the image. The sloped shoulders, the gray hair combed back, the slight limp from an old injury. "Douglas," I whispered. Andrew nodded slowly. "Taken 2 days after the funeral." He checked in under a fake name, stayed 3 nights, then vanished again. No sign of him since. My fingers trembled as I traced the outline of his face on the photo. "He's alive," I breathed. "Dear God, he's alive." The words felt foreign, too large to fit inside me. Andrew spoke softly. I think he tried to disappear because he realized how deep the conspiracy went. Your children, the insurance, the falsified reports. He must have known they'd stop at nothing. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. But why wouldn't he come to me? Why wouldn't he tell me he was alive? "Because they were watching you," Andrew said grimly. "He was protecting you." We sat in the police station's parking lot as the morning light spilled over the street. Andrew opened the folder further, revealing transcripts of the voice recordings he'd mentioned. "I've only listened to pieces," he admitted, "but there's enough here to convince the authorities to reopen the case." He pressed play on the small recorder. Douglas's voice filled the air, low, steady, achingly familiar. "Caleb's been talking about life insurance again. Says it's for Elaine's peace of mind." But the way he said it, like he was rehearsing. "Trina's been calling every night, pushing him to convince me. Something isn't right." My stomach nodded. Another voice entered the recording. Caleb's. "Dad just signed the papers. You don't have to read every line. It's standard stuff." Then Douglas again, hesitant. "Why's the policy amount different from what the agent said last time?" "Just a correction," Caleb replied quickly. The recorder clicked off. I covered my mouth with both hands, fighting the nausea rising inside me. "They were planning it," I whispered. "My own children." Andrew nodded. "The forgeries, the fake accident report, the insurance adjustments, it all points to premeditation. And the poison." I looked up sharply. "Poison?" He hesitated. "I didn't want to overwhelm you, but the hospital record you showed me lists burn trauma. There's no mention of chemical analysis." I managed to get a copy of an internal memo from one of the lab technicians at County General. It mentions traces of methanol, a toxic alcohol that mimics the symptoms of heart failure or stroke. "Methanol," I repeated faintly. "Easy to mix in drinks. Hard to detect." The world spun. I clutched the dashboard to steady myself. "You think they poisoned him?" "I think they made him believe it was an accident. Maybe he started feeling sick, realized what was happening, and escaped before they could finish the job." Andrew leaned forward, his expression grim but resolute. "Elaine, this is bigger than insurance fraud. This is attempted murder, and if Douglas is still alive, he's in danger." For the first time in weeks, anger flared through my grief. "I want to find him," I said. "Whatever it takes." Andrew nodded. "Then we start by tracking that motel." We drove to the edge of Oak Ridge, 20 miles out of town. The Sunrise Motor Lodge was a weathered strip of single-story rooms with faded green doors and a cracked neon sign that flickered vacancy. The manager, a wiry man with nicotine-stained fingers, squinted at us over the counter. "I remember him," he said after I showed him the photo. "Quiet guy. Big cash. Didn't talk much. Left before dawn on the 4th day." "Did he say where he was going?" Andrew asked. The man shook his head. "Just said, 'Tell my wife I'm sorry.'" My breath caught. Andrew slipped him a business card. "If you remember anything else, call me." As we left, the man called after us. "There was one thing. A younger woman came by asking for him that last night. Said she was his daughter. Blonde business suit. Looked nervous. Megan." My blood ran cold. "She found him," I said. "She found him, Anne." Andrew put a hand on my shoulder. "Let's not jump ahead. But yes, it fits the timeline." That night, I returned home under the weight of too many truths. Douglas might still be alive. My children might have tried to kill him. And they were watching me. When I stepped inside, Doris was waiting on the porch swing. "Elaine," she said, concern knitting her brows. "I've been calling all day. You okay?" I hesitated. Doris had been my best friend for 20 years, but I couldn't be sure who I could trust anymore. "I'm fine," I said softly. She gave me that look. Half skeptical, half motherly. "You've lost weight. And those kids of yours keep showing up unannounced. I saw Caleb's car outside earlier. He didn't even wave." Froze. "What time was that?" "Maybe 2 hours ago." I glanced toward the house. The living room curtain fluttered slightly, as if someone had just stepped away from it. "I think I need some air," I murmured. Doris frowned. "Elaine, please. Lock your doors tonight." Inside, everything looked untouched, yet I could feel intrusion. A drawer slightly ajar. Photo frame moved half an inch. A faint scent of Caleb's cologne lingering near Douglas's desk. I checked the study. His old computer was gone. My pulse raced. Another message buzzed on my phone. "They searched the house. They're looking for the recordings." My fingers trembled. "Who are you?" Typed again. "Someone Douglas trusted. Don't let them find the envelope behind the picture frame." I turned toward the wall. The framed photo of our wedding day hung slightly crooked. My heart hammered as I lifted it away. Behind it, taped to the wall, was another envelope. Inside, a USB drive and a short note. "If you're reading this, I didn't make it out. Give this to Andrew. Has everything." I clutched it to my chest. The next morning, Andrew examined the drive in his office. The blinds were drawn, the air thick with tension. He plugged it in. Dozens of audio files appeared, each labeled with dates and times. We listened. Douglas's voice again, this time more strained. "Megan stopped by today. She said I should retire. Said I'd earned a rest. But she kept glancing around the shop, like she was taking inventory of my tools. When I told her I wanted to fix the roof next week, she said, 'Don't worry, Dad. You won't have to deal with any more leaks soon.'" Another clip. "Caleb and Trina visited tonight. They brought wine. I didn't drink. They did. Whispered in the kitchen while they thought I was outside. Heard my name. Heard the word policy. Heard soon. Then static and finally, 'If anything happens to me, tell Elaine I'm sorry for not trusting sooner. Tell her I love her.'" The room felt smaller, the air thinner. Andrew switched off the recorder. "That's enough," he said quietly. Tears blurred my vision. "We have to go to the police. Now." He nodded. "We'll meet with Detective Hart at County tomorrow morning. She's the only one I trust there." That evening, while I prepared dinner, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Caleb stood there, flanked by Megan and Trina. "Mom," he said with forced calm. "We need to talk." My heart pounded. "About what?" Megan's tone was soft but firm. "You've been saying strange things to the bank, to the neighbors. We're worried. You're accusing us of awful things." I haven't accused anyone, I said. Caleb stepped forward. Mom, we love you. But you're not thinking clearly. You're imagining conspiracies. Dad's gone. You need help. Trina held up a folder. We've spoken to an attorney. He agrees you might need temporary guardianship for your safety. My mouth went dry. You're trying to have me declared incompetent. Megan reached for my arm. It's just for now. You'll thank us later. Pulled back. Don't touch me. Caleb's jaw tightened. Mom, please don't make this harder. Behind him, Trina's eyes gleamed with something sharp. Impatience, maybe fear. I have proof, I said, trembling. Proof of what you've done. They froze. Caleb laughed nervously. Mom, what are you talking about? Your father recorded you. The air thickened. Megan's lips parted. Trina's knuckles whitened around her purse strap. Then Caleb said coldly, You shouldn't believe everything you hear, Mom. Especially when you're grieving. He turned, motioning for the others to leave. But before stepping out, he looked back at me. Eyes flat and distant. We'll talk again soon. Don't do anything foolish. The door shut. I locked every bolt. That night, as rain hammered the windows, I sat on the floor clutching Douglas's letter, the USB drive and my phone. A new message appeared. They're desperate. They'll come again tomorrow. Don't be alone. Type back quickly. Who are you really? The reply came almost instantly. You'll find out soon. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., at the Willow Creek Diner. Andrew will bring the police. It's time. I read it 3 times. Relief mixed with terror. Finally, I whispered into the empty room. Hold on, Douglas. I'm coming. The rain hadn't stopped by morning. It came down in heavy sheets, turning Maple Hollow's streets into rivers of gray. The windshield wipers beat in rhythm with my pulse as I drove toward Willow Creek Diner, heart thudding like I was heading into war. The message from last night repeated in my mind. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., at the Willow Creek Diner. Andrew will bring the police. It's time. Kept checking the rearview mirror. Every car behind me felt like a shadow following too closely. When I finally pulled into the diner lot, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. A single police cruiser sat near the entrance. Andrew stood under the awning, his coat darkened by water, talking to a woman in plain clothes. He waved me over. Elaine, this is Detective Julia Hart. She's the one I told you about. Hart was in her early 40s, sharp-eyed, confident. She shook my hand firmly. Mrs. Porter, I've gone through the material Mr. Cole sent me last night. It's a lot. But it's compelling. Then you believe me? Yes. I believe something's very wrong, she said. And we're going to find out what. We sat inside a back booth. The air smelled of coffee and damp coats. Andrew spread out the documents and photos across the table. Forged signatures, the altered insurance policy, screenshots of bank transfers, and stills from the motel footage. Detective Hart's eyes flicked from one to another, her expression hardening. This is enough to open a formal investigation, she said finally. But before we move forward, Mrs. Porter, I need you to be completely honest. Do you have any reason to believe your husband might have faked his own death? I shook my head. Douglas wasn't that kind of man. He'd never leave me, not willingly. Andrew nodded. There's more. We found this last night. He slid a small flash drive across the table. It was hidden inside the USB folder. Password protected. Elaine recognized the code phrase. Landslide, I whispered. Our wedding song. Andrew smiled faintly. Exactly. Inside was a single video file. He opened his laptop. The screen glowed blue, then flickered to life. Douglas appeared. He sat in his workshop, wearing the same flannel shirt I'd buried him in, or thought I had. His face looked tired, his eyes shadowed by fear. If you're watching this, Elaine, I didn't make it. Or maybe I'm running. I don't know yet. But if you're hearing my voice, it means I was right about the kids. They've changed. Trina's got them tangled in something bad. Money debts may be worse. I overheard her talking on the phone. Something about selling property that doesn't exist, fake contracts. She said my name too. Said I was a liability. He paused, his voice cracking. I didn't want to believe it. God knows I didn't. But when I found the poison bottle in the garage fridge, I knew it was true. If I disappear, tell Andrew everything. Don't trust anyone, not even Megan. Love you. Always. The video ended. Silence hung over the booth like smoke. Detective Hart exhaled slowly. That's enough for a warrant. As we gathered the evidence, the doorbell above the diner's entrance jingled. I looked up and froze. Megan. She stood dripping wet from the rain, clutching an umbrella. Her gaze locked on me, then shifted to Andrew, then the detective. Mom, she said softly. What's going on here? Hart tensed. Mrs. Porter, do you want me to handle this? I swallowed hard. No. Let me talk to her. Megan approached the booth, her expression trembling between concern and calculation. I called you this morning. You didn't answer. Caleb said you were meeting strangers. Sit down, I said. She hesitated, then did. Megan, I said quietly, I need you to tell me the truth. About your father. About what really happened that night. Her eyes flickered. Mom. Don't lie, I snapped, voice breaking. I know everything. The forgeries. Poison. The staged explosion. Color drained from her face. Who told you that? Your father did. Her breath hitched. Andrew leaned forward. We have him on video, Megan. He's alive, or he was, until you and your brother found him at that motel. She stared at him, horrified. You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Hart's tone sharpened. Then tell us what was supposed to happen. Megan's hands trembled. She looked at me, then away. It was Trina. She said Dad was hiding money from us. That he planned to cut us out of the will. She said if we didn't act, we'd lose everything. So you tried to kill him? I whispered. Tears welled in her eyes. No. We just wanted to scare him. Make him sign over the property. But he figured it out. He called that investigator guy. Trina panicked. She said if he talked, we'd all go to jail. My blood ran cold. So she staged his death. Megan nodded, sobbing. She said she'd handle it. Said it would look like an accident. We thought. Detective Hart cut her off, voice calm but firm. Where is he now, Megan? I don't know, she cried. I swear I don't. Trina told us it was done, that we should never ask questions. Where is your brother? With her. At her sister's lake house, I think. Hart exchanged a look with Andrew. I'll send a team right now. She rose, signaling an officer outside. Within minutes, radios crackled, and the diner filled with the sound of urgency. Megan sat crumpled in the booth, shaking. Mom, she whispered, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Please believe me. I wanted to reach for her to comfort her, but all I could see was Douglas's face on that video. His tired eyes. His voice pleading for me to trust no one. Belief, I said softly, is something you have to earn. Hours later, Detective Hart called from her cruiser. They'd found the lake house. It was empty, but fresh tire tracks led toward the highway. Then she said something that froze me. We found blood in the kitchen. And a broken phone. Douglas, I whispered. Could be, she said grimly. We're running tests. But there's more. Trina's car was spotted heading south toward Cincinnati around dawn. We're putting out an APB. By nightfall, Megan was in protective custody, and Andrew insisted I stay at a hotel under police watch. The room felt sterile and silent, the kind of quiet that makes you hear every doubt in your head. I sat by the window, clutching my phone, waiting for another message. None came. Until midnight. The screen lit up. Unknown number. They caught Trina. She tried to run. Douglas is safe. He wants to see you. My breath caught. Where? Type. County Hospital, room 214. I didn't wait for clearance or escort. I threw on my coat and ran into the rain. The hospital corridors were dim and quiet. The nurse at the desk frowned when she saw my soaked clothes. "Room 214, I gasped. She nodded toward the end of the hall. I walked slowly, every step heavy with disbelief. When I reached the door, my hand shook so hard I could barely push it open. He was there. Douglas. Alive. He sat upright in bed, thinner, bruised, a bandage on his forehead, but alive. His eyes met mine, and for a second neither of us spoke. Then he smiled weakly. "Elaine." My breath broke. "Douglas." I ran to him, tears spilling before I could stop them. His arms wrapped around me, warm, real, shaking. "I thought I'd lost you," I sobbed. "I thought I'd never see you again," he whispered. He held me tighter. "They tried to kill me, Elaine. Trina and Caleb. When I realized what they were doing, I ran. They found me at the motel. She hit me, left me for dead. Some old trucker found me and got me to a clinic out of state. I couldn't call, it wasn't safe." His voice cracked. "I kept sending messages from burner phones, trying to warn you." I pulled back, staring at him. "You sent those texts?" He nodded. "Every one of them." Relief and heartbreak collided in my chest. "You saved my life." "No," he said softly. "You saved mine." Detective Hart arrived shortly after. She told us Trina had been arrested at a rest stop near Lexington. Caleb had fled but was caught 2 days later at a motel in Indiana. Both were charged with attempted murder, insurance fraud, and conspiracy. Megan cooperated fully, and though her role was undeniable, her remorse was genuine. Douglas testified from his hospital bed, voice frail but firm. The recordings, the letters, the forged documents, they painted a picture so complete even the judge called it a tragedy born from greed. Trina was sentenced to 30 years. Caleb got 15. When the trial ended, the cameras faded, the reporters left, and silence returned to our lives. Douglas and I moved to a small lakeside cabin 2 towns over. The days are slow there, the kind of slow that feels earned. He still flinches at sudden noises, and I still wake some nights expecting a message that says don't trust them. But we're healing. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the water, he turned to me and said, "Do you think people can forgive what can't be forgotten?" I looked at him, the man I buried, the man I found again. "I think forgiveness isn't forgetting," I said. "It's choosing to stop bleeding." He smiled faintly. "Then maybe we're halfway there." We sat in silence, the world finally still. Then, just as the sky turned to dusk, my phone buzzed. New message. Unknown number. "You don't know the whole story." I stared at it, the lake wind brushing my face, Douglas beside me unaware. And for the first time in months, I wasn't sure if the nightmare was truly over, or just beginning again. The night I got that text, the lake was still. The moon floated above it like a pale coin tossed by heaven. Douglas had already gone to bed. I sat alone on the porch, the glow of my phone painting my hands silver. "You don't know the whole story." 6 words. No name. No clue. Just a ripple in the calm I'd fought so hard to build. For a long time I didn't move. Then slowly I typed, "Who are you?" No reply. Only the quiet hum of crickets and the faraway splash of water against the dock. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a prank, maybe someone trolling the headlines. After all, our story had made national news for weeks. Family greed, fake death, justice at last. Reporters loved us. People cried, gossiped, then forgot. But I couldn't shake the unease. By morning, I still hadn't slept. The message glowed in my mind like an ember refusing to die. Douglas noticed my silence over breakfast. "You okay?" "Fine," I lied. He watched me with the gentle patience that used to drive me crazy when we were younger. "Elaine, talk to me." So I showed him. He frowned, reading the message twice. "It's probably spam." "No," I said quietly. "It's too timed." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Then give it to Andrew. He'll trace it. We've had enough ghosts." He was right. Or I wanted him to be. By afternoon, Andrew came by the cabin. He'd stayed in touch since the trial, partly out of habit, partly because he never stopped investigating. When he saw the message, he frowned. Numbers encrypted. Whoever sent it used a relay service, one I've only seen used by law enforcement or private intelligence. Law enforcement? Douglas asked, his brow furrowing. You think the police sent it? Andrew shook his head. Not officially. He pocketed the phone. Give me a day or two. I'll dig. 2 nights later, the nightmares returned. I dreamed of Douglas's coffin again. Only this time when it opened there was no body. Just my phone vibrating endlessly. When I woke the screen was lit. Another text. Same unknown number. Ask him what really happened at the lake house. I sat up, heart racing. Douglas stirred beside me. What is it? Nothing, I said too quickly. But inside my thoughts churned. Ask him. Ask him what? The next morning, while he tended the small garden behind the cabin, I watched him through the kitchen window. The man I loved, the man I had buried and found again, looked heavy. Like a man carrying something too painful to put down. I remembered the video he'd left for me. The fear in his voice, the apology. I had clung to that as truth. But now doubt crept in, subtle and cold. What if the text was right? That evening, Andrew returned. He looked pale. Elaine, he said carefully. We need to talk. Douglas joined us in the living room. Andrew hesitated before sitting. I traced the number. It originated from a prepaid device purchased 3 days ago. In your husband's name. The room fell silent. Douglas's eyes widened. That's impossible. I checked twice, Andrew said. The store clerk remembered him. Said he came in with a hat pulled low and paid in cash. I turned to Douglas. Tell me that's not true. He swallowed. Elaine, I didn't. Tell me. He rubbed his temples. I bought the phone, yes. But not to scare you. I wanted to end it. I thought if you got one last message, you'd stop waiting for danger. You'd move on. I stared at him, disbelief flooding me. You pretended to be someone else. He nodded, ashamed. I didn't think it would spiral like this. You stood shaking. After everything, you lied again. Elaine, please. No, cried. You told me to trust you. You made me doubt my children, my sanity, my entire life. And now this. He looked broken. I just wanted peace. Andrew rose quietly. I'll give you 2 a moment. He stepped outside, leaving the door half open. I turned away from Douglas, tears hot on my cheeks. You could have told me. I was afraid, he whispered. Afraid you'd never stop looking over your shoulder. Maybe I was right to, I said. That night, I sat alone again on the porch. The rain had returned, gentle, steady. Douglas slept inside, guilt carving lines into his face even in dreams. I should have felt closure. But instead I felt watched. Around midnight my phone buzzed once more. Same number. He's lying. The blood at the lake house wasn't his. Froze. Who is this? Type. The reply came instantly. Someone who buried the truth for too long. What truth? Check Andrew Cole. My pulse quickened. I rushed inside, grabbed my laptop, and opened the folder Andrew had given me months ago. The investigation files. Something caught my eye I hadn't noticed before. A payment log from the insurance company. Consulting fee. Paid to Cole Investigations LLC. Date. 3 days before Douglas's disappearance. Authorized by Trina Hayes. My breath caught. Andrew had been working for Trina before he ever claimed to work for Douglas. The next morning I confronted him. He arrived as usual, calm, professional. But when he saw my expression, his smile faltered. You lied, I said coldly. He blinked. What are you talking about? I shoved the paper toward him. Payment records. You were paid by Trina. You were in on it. He sighed, rubbing his face. It's not what you think. Then explain, I demanded. She hired me to check if Douglas was cheating. That's all. I didn't know about the insurance scheme until later. When I found out, I switched sides. You expect me to believe that? Yes, he said, voice low. Because if I'd stayed with her, you'd be dead. I stared at him, torn between rage and disbelief. He leaned closer. Trina wasn't the mastermind, Elaine. She was working for someone else. Someone who wanted your husband out of the picture entirely. Who? He hesitated. Douglas's old business partner, Paul Weller. He's been laundering money through the carpentry contracts for years. Douglas found out. That's why Trina panicked. She thought if Douglas exposed him, they'd all go down. And where is Paul now? Andrew's jaw tightened. Dead. Found in his car last week. Single gunshot to the head. Police are calling it suicide. A chill crawled up my spine. So it's over? I asked quietly. Andrew's eyes flicked toward the window. Maybe. But I'd still keep your phone close. 2 weeks later, Douglas and I tried to resume something resembling normal. We gardened. We walked the lake. We pretended that truth had finally stopped chasing us. Until the mail arrived. Inside was a small, unmarked envelope. No return address. Inside that, one photograph. It showed Douglas standing outside the lake house the night of his attack. His arm around someone. Trina. Both smiling. On the back, a single line was scrawled in familiar handwriting. Some lies are meant to survive their funerals. My knees buckled. Douglas came running from the kitchen. Elaine. What is it? I handed him the photo. For a split second, something flickered in his eyes. Not shock. Recognition. Where did you get this? He asked too quickly. You tell me, I said, voice shaking. He looked down at the picture again, then met my eyes. It's not what it looks like. But this time I didn't want explanations. I turned away, tears burning my throat. Behind me, the lake wind howled against the windows, carrying the same message I'd read months ago. Trust no one. Weeks have passed since then. Douglas and I still live by the lake, but we no longer share the same room. The police reopened the case after I turned in the photo. Andrew disappeared the following day. His office cleared out, his phone disconnected. Sometimes when the wind rattles the shutters at night, I swear I hear a phone vibrating somewhere in the house. And sometimes, I still get messages. No sender. No number. Just words. Truth doesn't die, Elaine. It waits. I delete them every time. But I never stop reading them first. Because deep down I know. The dead don't always stay buried. And some ghosts have my husband's voice. Don't forget to subscribe and wait for the next life story.